July 2008. Living life and reading books. And that's what we're here for, so we're going to jump right in. The first book that I read in July of 2008 was No House Limit by Steve Fisher. This was a hard case crime book, and our main character is Joe Martin. I can't read my own handwriting. Joe Martin, and he owns the largest independent casino in Las Vegas, and the syndicate wants that casino, so they bring in the world's most famous gambler, world's greatest gambler, who challenges Joe Martin to a high stakes craps game, and the stakes are the casino. The little tagline on the book is just a novel of Las Vegas. The hard case crime books, in my opinion, hit and miss. Depends on the author, depends on the story. There are a lot of really great ones, and some are originals to hard case crime. Some are reprints. I believe this one's a reprint, and I really don't remember much about it, but I like crime novels. So I'm always willing to give the hard case crime books a chance. So it's No House Limit by Steve Fisher. Next up, we have Tower Hill by Sarah Pinborough. I believe this is the last of her leisure book novels. I have them all sitting right over there, and I'm just going to read the back cover copy. The quiet New England town of Tower Hill sits perched on high cliffs, removed from the outside world. At its heart lie a small college and a very old church. There are secrets buried in Tower Hill, artifacts hidden centuries ago and long forgotten, but they are about to be unearthed. A charismatic new priest has come to Tower Hill, a handsome new professor is teaching at the college, and a nightmare has settled over the town. A girl is found dead and mutilated by her own hand. Another has slashed her face with scissors. Have the residents of Tower Hill all gone mad, or something worse, something unholy, taken over? This is my least favorite of Sarah Pinborough's leisure books, which isn't to say that it's bad. Something has to be the least favorite. And it's, I don't know, just this didn't grab me the way a lot of her other books did. The first I read was Breeding Ground or Feeding Ground. I think it was Breeding Ground. She has two giant killer spider books, which of course are my favorite because I'm biased that way, and killer animals are my favorite subgenre of horror. For anyone who doesn't know that, that would just be new viewers because I talk about it all the time. Her other stuff, I don't know, just felt, I enjoyed those a little bit more. I enjoyed this well enough. At some point, I'd like to reread all of her leisure stuff. But this one didn't stack up against the rest. Again, not to say it's bad. It's good. Just, in my opinion, not as good as the others. But that's Tower Hill, Sarah Pinborough. And next up we have Go-Go Girls of the Apocalypse by Victor Gischler. This is an author that I discovered because he was writing comic books. He wrote an X-Men comic and made Jubilee into a vampire. I believe it was Jubilee. And he's done a lot of vampire stuff for Marvel. I have a few things that he's written on my shelf over here. You can't see it, but a lot of it features vampires in the Marvel Universe. So this book, once again, just going to read the back cover copy. Mortimer Tate was a recently divorced insurance salesman when he holed up in a cave on top of a mountain in Tennessee and wrote out the end of the world. Go-Go Girls of the Apocalypse begins 9 years later when he emerges into a bizarre landscape filled with hollow reminders of an America that no longer exists. The highways are lined with abandoned automobiles. Electricity is generated by indentured servants peddling stationary bicycles. What little civilization remains revolves around Joey Armageddon's sassy a-go-go strip clubs, where the beer is cold, the lap dancers are hot, and the bouncers are armed with M16s. Accompanied by his cowboy sidekick Buffalo Bill, the gorgeous stripper Sheila, and the mountain man Ted, Mortimer journeys to the lost city of Atlanta and a showdown that might determine the fate of humanity. I like the blurb on the front from James Rollins. Part Christopher Moore, part Quentin Tarantino. Victor Gischler is a raving badass genius, but I think that's a decent description. It's a funny book. It's a violent book, and it goes with Vampire Girls a Go-Go, something like that. But I think all his books before this were crime novels, and then he started sort of stretching his wings and doing things a little different. Still a lot of action and guns and stuff, but stepping out into more supernatural in the case of the Vampire Girls a Go-Go, whatever it's called. We'll get to it eventually on this list. And at this point, he's written tons of crime and thrillers and fantasy and science fiction. And I think this was his first step towards branching out. But it's a fun book. Go-Go Girls of the Apocalypse. Next up, we have Whiskey Sour by J.A. Conrath. I do have this book, but it is buried, and I didn't feel like taking the time to dig it out. This is the first of the Jack Daniels books, and the main character is Jacqueline, Detective Jacqueline Jack Daniels, and her boyfriend has left her for another woman. She's going into credit card debt because she has insomnia, and she's up all night spending money on buying stuff she sees on TV. And there's a serial killer in town. And you know what? Excuse me just a moment. Let me see. I want to check which town that is. Will this tell me? Nope. I'm looking at the description on Amazon. And no, it's like Chicago or Detroit, one of those places. Not that it really matters. But anyway, there's a serial killer called the Gingerbread Man in town, and she's dealing with her own personal issues, trying to catch this killer, trying to deal with the crappy FBI agents that have come into town because of the serial killer, and a private eye, sloppy, disgusting private eye that we talked about in Suckers. Was that just a couple of videos ago? Let's take a look. Nope, just the last video, Suckers by J.A. Conrath and Jeff Strand. Harry McGlade, I believe is his name. He's always hitting on poor old Jacqueline Daniels. She's dealing with all of that and trying to catch this serial killer. I really, really like this book. I don't think I was on Goodreads yet, rating things. This would definitely have been a 4, possibly a 5. Great introduction to the character. I think there's 26 Jack Daniels books, and I have a bunch, but I don't think I have 26 of them. I need to get back to reading them because they're a lot of fun, and the character has grown throughout the series. I think the books have become very wild. This one seems more like a straightforward police procedural thriller, a light Silence of the Lambs type of thing, or maybe Manhunter. I don't think she's like going to talk to a serial killer that she captured previously or anything, but again, it's a serial killer, so there's going to be some profiling and everything. But I think the books, I was going to say go off the rails, but that might sound negative. They get wild. Anyway, Whiskey Sour, J.A. Conrath, first Jack Daniels book, fantastic stuff. And the penultimate book that I read in July of 2008 is The Summer I Died by Ryan C. Thomas. And this is the first in the Roger Huntington saga, which I think is just 3 books. And I think this is the only one that I've read so far. And Roger Huntington, college kid, he's home for the summer, hanging out with his friend Tooth, planning on just having just a fun summer, hanging out. Maybe meeting some girls, having fun, reading comics, playing games. But then he and Tooth are, I believe they're both captured by a crazed serial killer. And poor old Roger's just trying to survive. If I recall correctly, and it has, well, I haven't read it since 2008. Most of the book is Roger being a captive. And so the biggest chunk of it, again, if I'm remembering correctly, is him in a house or a barn or wherever it is that he's being held captive and simply trying to survive, trying to escape. But it's very, very good. I really enjoyed it enough that I read some more Ryan C. Thomas. That'll come up later. And but unfortunately, as always, so many books to read, so many authors to check out. Ryan C. Thomas sort of fell off, and not because the books weren't any good, just I got distracted. And I definitely want to go back and read the rest of the Roger Huntington saga. But The Summer I Died, Ryan C. Thomas. The final book that I read in July of 2008 is Ghost Walk by Brian Keene, a leisure book. And once again, just going to read the back cover copy. There are all kinds of legends about Lahorn's Hollow. Everything from ghosts to a goat man are said to haunt the woods. So it's the perfect place for Ken Ripple to set up his latest haunted attraction. Halloween is coming, and Ripple knows folks will come from miles around to walk down the spooky trail and get scared witless. But there's one thing Ripple hadn't counted on. Those legends aren't just talk. Evil really does wait in the woods. Soon, the unsuspecting customers will pay their money and get in line to die. So this is somewhat of a sequel to Dark Hollow because it has the main character from that is Adam Senft, and I believe he is one of the characters. I don't recall if he's a main character, but I do believe he's one of the characters in this. And for me, at least, this was my introduction to Levi Stoltzfus, or however you pronounce his name, who's in a bunch of short stories, novels, novellas, and a major player in Brian Keene's Labyrinth series. And great book. Really enjoy it. You can read it without having read Dark Hollow. And I do like the whole haunted trail thing, and something in Lahorn's Hollow, which Lahorn's Hollow, big part of Brian Keene's mythos. But again, don't need to know any of that to read and enjoy the book. Ghost Walk by Brian Keene. And that is everything that I read in July of 2008. Excuse me. My question for this video, I don't think I've asked this before. Are there any authors that you thoroughly enjoyed but stopped reading for one reason or another? I suppose the only reason I won't accept is that they just stopped writing or they died and there was nothing else to read. So somebody who has stuff out there that you haven't read, you really enjoyed whatever it was you read of theirs before, but you just have not gotten to the other stuff. Are there any authors like that for you? And what was the reason, or what is the reason that you haven't read their other stuff? For me, it happens far too often. As I said, with the Ryan C. Thomas. I read this, and I think it was his very next book, and I may or may not have read another one, and then just sort of fell off as I moved on to other things. And not because I didn't enjoy any of the stuff that he wrote. I'm sure there were others if I had taken the time to think of this, but this question was spur of the moment. Um, but there's plenty of authors that I haven't read in a long time. Like I haven't read any new Clive Barker in a while. New to me, I should say, Clive Barker. And I need to rectify that situation. I have the Scarlet Gospels, or Gospel. Is it plural or not? But I want to reread The Hellbound Heart and The Last Illusion because Scarlet Gospel is the sort of conclusion or a continuation of those two stories. It's the is his name Harry D'Amour and the Cenobites, I believe. And I mean, I've read Damnation Game. I think I read Weave World or Magica, but somewhere in there I haven't read all of that stuff, like his big stuff. I don't think I read Sacrament or Galilee. And it's just because there's so much more to read, and his books are thick, usually. So I know they're going to take time. Peter Straub, maybe, is a great example. I read Ghost Story and Floating Dragon and maybe something else. I can't remember. And then it's been decades since I've read any Peter Straub. I've started collecting his stuff again. I've got a decent little stack to read, but for some reason, and I enjoyed everything I read from him, but just had moved on to other people. I could sit here and look around and find authors that I love and just have not read their stuff in a long, long time. But what about you? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, if you know where Levi Stoltzfus's first appearance actually is, if it's not Ghost Walk, let me know. Yes, the comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. If you care to follow me on other social media, I'll have links for my Instagram and Blue Sky in the description below. And that's all I have for you this week. So until next week, read more books.